Duchamp is one of the most important, influential, and definitely one of the most controversial artists of the 20th century. Today we'll look at three of his most important works: Nude Descending a Staircase, Fountain, and The Large Glass. To see them, we'll go to the Philadelphia Museum of Art, the world center for Duchamp works. But first, a bit of background. In 1903, a work by this artist, Lawrence Alma-Tadema, was sold for $30,000, said to be the highest price ever paid for the work of a living artist. What made this painting, which is also in Philadelphia, so valuable? First, look at the way it is painted, with exquisite detail, obviously done by the hand of a master with years of training. Now think about the subject. If you could read ancient Greek, you'd realize that this fellow is reading the works of Homer to these fascinated young people. They look just like my students when I was a professor. So this picture gives us a fantasy of a pre-industrial world long ago and far away, completely divorced from the world of its time. At the same time, other artists, Picasso for example, and Matisse, were calling for a radically different way of painting and a different kind of engagement with the world. Many Americans first saw the new modern art at the famous Armory Show. This was a huge art exhibition in New York that featured modern works by European and American artists, including a room dedicated to Cubism. But of all the works, one attracted the most attention. It was by a relatively unknown French artist, Marcel Duchamp, entitled Nude Descending a Staircase, No. 2. News of it went viral. It exemplified success by scandal, helping to attract 87,000 visitors to the exhibition. The New York Times said it looked like an explosion in a shingle factory. Others said it looked like a bundle of slats. And one newspaper offered a prize to anyone who could actually find the nude in the picture. Even that great art critic, Teddy Roosevelt, had an opinion. From the standpoint of decorative value, of sincerity, and of artistic merit, he said, "The Navajo rug in my bathroom is infinitely ahead of this picture." A cartoonist called it rude descending a staircase and compared it to people going into the subway stairs at rush hour. Why was it so shocking? There were plenty of other avant-garde paintings, like Dances at the Spring by Picabia. Perhaps it was that Duchamp seemed to be attacking one of the oldest and most revered traditions in Western art, the nude female figure, like this one by Titian. A group of French artists who'd rejected the painting from an earlier exhibition said, "A nude never descends the stairs. A nude reclines." But even by Cubist standards, this picture was radical. Although the modern painters had forged a new style of painting, they were much less adventurous in the subjects that they painted. Scenes from the cafes they haunted were particularly popular, like Man in a Cafe by Juan Gris, or Half Past Three, the Poet, by Marc Chagall. Duchamp's painting, by contrast, evokes the whole world of machines and technology. Look at the figure. Is it a nude woman or a nude man? Or is it even human? To me, it looks more like a mechanical automaton. The painting reflects the new technologies, such as the new technique of stop-motion photography, as in this series created by Edward Muybridge. Duchamp also appears to be referencing motion picture technology. The first movie theater opened in 1905, and new theaters were opening everywhere. The multiple images in Duchamp's figure conveys movement just as a cinema does. When you compare Nude Descending to a reading from Homer, you can see how Duchamp's painting is truly innovative. Yes, like the other modern artists, he rejects the lifelike style of painting, but he also engages directly with the emerging technologies of the time. Nude Descending made Duchamp famous in America and brought him wealthy patrons like Louise and Walter Arnsberg. He moved to New York and was asked to be on a committee of prominent artists. The committee sponsored an art exhibition that promised to accept any art submitted, with no jury. Duchamp wondered if they really meant what they said. At Mott's Plumbing Supply Company, he bought a urinal, which he submitted for the exhibition under the fictitious name R. Moot, and he called it Fountain. Here's a photo. The exhibition organizers were outraged and said that it wasn't art. Not only was it a toilet, but it hadn't even been created by an artist. The exhibition opened at the Grand Central Palace, but without fountain. Duchamp resigned from the committee in protest, and his work was again the center of controversy, with articles like this one, pro and con. The original fountain was lost or thrown away, but years later Duchamp made some replicas. The earliest one is here in Philadelphia. It raised a question that people have been talking about ever since. What is art? Does the artist have to actually make the object, or is it enough that it makes us think, ask questions, and see the world in a new way? You can read about Fountain in almost any art history book. It introduced the idea of conceptual art, where the idea behind the art is more important than the actual production of the art. Museum visitors who see conceptual art pieces like Fountain sometimes say, "I could have done that," and the answer is, yes, but you didn't. Over and above the bathroom humor, Fountain has another shocking quality. It's a mass-produced product of the industrial age. It's what Duchamp called a ready-made, referencing the mass-produced clothing that was becoming dominant. Duchamp is suggesting that industrial objects can also be art, like his bicycle wheel. Seen in this way, Duchamp's most striking idea is not that a toilet can be art, but that a machine-made, mass-produced object, toilet or bicycle wheel, can be art. Our next work takes Duchamp's journey of exploration to a new level. It's a work made from industrial materials about the industrial age. Even its name, The Bride, stripped bare by her bachelors, Yvonne, is challenging and paradoxical. It's also known as the large glass. It's over 7 feet tall and made of glass with lead wire and foil. It's really hard to grasp from pictures. You should come to the museum to see it. Duchamp worked on it for years, making many studies and drawings of machines and mechanical parts, like this chocolate grinder number 1, which you'll notice in the larger work. He stopped working on it in 1923, when it would have looked more or less like this, which is a reconstruction by another artist. In 1927, he declared it unfinished, but he did allow it to be exhibited in the Brooklyn Museum. The glass was accidentally shattered. In 1936, he meticulously put it back together and said he was delighted with the random cracks, and now declared it finished. Eventually it was, with Duchamp's supervision, installed in the Philadelphia Museum of Art, along with many other Duchamp works. Both in terms of its style and its content, the large glass completely engages with the industrial world. Let's look at it in more detail using this image. The top section is the zone of this metallic-looking bride. Here she is, with this long appendage hanging down. She also has this veil-like attachment with 3 square patches. In the lower half, we see 9 bachelors. In his notes, Duchamp tells us their occupations: priest, delivery boy, etc. Like the figures in Nude descending, they look more like machine-made products than human. Nonetheless, they are so excited by the bride, and who wouldn't be, that they energize the machinery trying to shoot something into these square windows. If they hit the target successfully, they will be able to consummate their love. Duchamp used a toy cannon to shoot 9 painted matches at the squares and mark the hits. Alas for the bachelors, none of the shots reach the targets, and they are never able to have the object of their desire. Scholars have discussed all of this in great detail, but I'll stress just 2 things. First, about the content. As you can see, this is all about the machine age. But it is not a positive vision. Our desires are ultimately frustrated. Secondly, Duchamp is making a statement about art making, suggesting that the traditional forms of art are inadequate to capture the realities of the modern world. We've come a long way, I think you'll agree, from where we started. After making the large glass, Duchamp stopped doing art for many years, living partly as a professional chess master. By the 1950s, he started to be widely recognized, and he became enormously influential. Today you'll see his influence everywhere. In the Philadelphia Museum of Art, for example, you might see conceptual art, like Andy Warhol's Brillo boxes, or if you went to the sculpture garden, you'll see this giant plug or cube tap by Oldenburg. Or you might see more contemporary works such as Rachel Harrison's Nice Rack. All of these works remind us of Duchamp's ready-mades, in the way they use familiar objects as conceptual art pieces that make us see the world in different ways. And many contemporary artists have followed Duchamp's lead in using non-traditional industrial materials, such as Bruce Nauman's window or wall sign, done in neon, or Felix Gonzalez-Torres' Untitled, 1992. All three of the works we discussed were controversial in their own time, and in many quarters, Duchamp is as controversial today as he was then. But whatever you think, he's a giant in terms of his influence in the 20th century. And thank you for joining me. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel, or click on the description below for my other art YouTubes.